Welcome to the Missouri Woods and Water Podcast with your hosts, Nate and Micah. We got our buddy Nathan here tonight.
Other Nathan.
Other Nathan. That's
Yeah.
going to get confusing for me.
We've got Nathan Burditt here with Burd Eye Drone Services. So our first drone show, which I am looking forward to.
Yeah, I'm excited about it.
And he is on the Missouri Woods and Water podcast, not the PIDcast, whatever you said.
I effed that up, didn't I? That's all right.
It is. We're recording this on January 15th, Nathan. And Micah killed a deer today.
Yep. Me and my wife have more confirmed kills with vehicles than CWD ever has. So starting this year.
Didn't even need the drone for it.
No, you killed that thing right there.
When so it's kind of funny. So my wife hit one like 2 months ago in her van. It fucked her car all up. It's been in the shop. So she's been driving my truck, and I've been driving a company truck. Well, sure enough, the guy called me yesterday. He's like, hey, your wife's car is going to be done either Friday or, Thursday or Friday. I'm like, okay, sweet. I'm bebopping home today in the company truck. Sure enough, fucking deer runs right in front of me. Boom! I was pissed.
Yep.
I was pissed.
That's life.
We got another one for you.
Yeah.
At least it wasn't your I hate to say this, but at least it wasn't like your personal truck.
I mean, sure, but I feel kind of bad about it.
Yeah.
I called my boss. I'm like, hey, man, just so you know, I hit a deer.
Yep.
He's like, you okay? I'm like, yeah. He's like, is the truck total? I'm like, no, the lights
messed up.
Lights messed up. He's like, oh, I don't give a shit. It's all right. We'll be all right.
But, so today's show we're going to talk about drone deer recovery. And maybe more than that. It's not the only thing you can use, drones for. I don't know all the laws and legal stuff. You'll tell us something about that. But that's what we're going to do today. Before we get into the show, let's have Nathan introduce himself. Tell us about who you are, where you're from. Are you from Missouri?
I am from Kansas side, but
Okay.
I decided to buy a house in Missouri to get that in-state
In-state
tags. Yeah.
So
There
should
you
we
go.
make him answer the question?
See, but if you live in Kansas, then you can just buy your over the counter.
Well, what I really fucked up with is not buying my lifetime Kansas before I came to Missouri.
Yeah, you should have done
And,
that.
Wait a
uh,
minute. So if you lived in Kansas, you could
can
buy
buy
a
a
lifetime,
lifetime.
and that
And-
transfers anywhere.
And then if I would have moved to Missouri, I would have still been able to have that.
Oh my gosh!
And I really screwed up big time when
How much was that? Like,
I think it was like $500 or something.
Oh,
That's
dude,
it?
Or
that's a-
$1,000, something like that.
That's
something
a no-brainer, though, right?
No, I screwed up.
It makes me
Yeah.
want to move back to Kansas just for a few years
Well,
just to do it.
I thought about trying to keep my license at my parents' address for a
Yeah.
little bit and working the system, but I was like, I can't
I
now.
can't do
and
it, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's too late. But
Well, so introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, where you're from, and then we'll get into sponsors, and then we'll get into the fun part of the show.
awesome. Yeah, so Nathan Burditt with Burd Eye Drone Services from the Kansas City, Missouri side, and started doing drone deer recovery for the first year this year.
Which is the first year it's been legal to do that here
Correct.
in the state.
Correct. And so I saw it from Mike up in Ohio, and I have a day job, desk job, and I like deer hunting too much, and I just said I needed to find something to kill time after work, and being a small part of someone's hunt and being able to change and flip the script to where they have that success. That's what I was really looking forward towards, and it's taken off like crazy. I was telling myself and telling my wife, I was like, man, if I can get 5 calls this year, I said I'll be happy.
Right.
And 25 plus calls later and recoveries later, I'm like, yeah, I kind of blew expectations, and it's gone a little bit better than I thought. But no, it's been really fun doing this and working with customers and meeting all different walks of life, and I can say some of those customers have become friends.
Sure, yeah.
And building those relationships. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Well, and for YouTube folks out there, we've got the drone right here.
Yep.
So we'll talk about it later, and what it is and all the
Oh, yeah.
different different options out there. I'm guessing because I know of at least a handful of guys in Missouri that have started doing it this year, and I'm sure there's different options, different ones you can buy, and all these different things that you can do with them. I know the drone deer guy out in Ohio. You said his name's Mike.
Mike,
I think
yes.
that's right. Yeah.
He runs those real big ones.
Yeah, he's got they're large, and he can switch them to live view from thermal to
Yep.
see the animal moving
Yep.
and all kinds of options. So excited about hearing about because this is not something we really know about.
No,
other than the
we've
thermals we put on our guns to hunt coyotes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what we know about.
Yeah, they'll find the coyotes. They'll find the coyotes.
One of them's up there. But so, yeah, let's do our sponsors real quick. We're going to do them with Nathan because we don't know Nathan very well, and so this will be fun just to see what he likes to use, what he does. Micah, we're doing evens. So let's start with Huntworth Gear. Use our code MWW15 for 15% off our stuff.
We're assuming that's still good.
I'm assuming you're a Sitka guy.
Yeah, I am.
He's wearing a Sitka shirt.
You don't like money? Is that thing? You just like to blow money?
You just like to blow money.
Yeah, I usually walk outside my house and I light it on fire pretty much.
Yeah, that's all right.
But
they like to give me shit because before we started working with Huntworth, I wore Sitka. And it works.
Yeah.
The stuff works. But if you ever get to a point where you're like,
Huntworth works.
Huntworth
and it's
works
a lot cheaper.
really well.
That's what we're going with.
And it's good stuff. So and good company, good folks. So use our code. Check out their stuff. They've got stuff from like early season all the way through the heat boost stuff that we'll be wearing right now.
Yep.
Black Ovis. Use our code MWW10 for 10% off. We're looking forward to less than a month.
Yeah.
Less than a month. We will be at the Western Hunt Expo with Black Ovis.
They're in Salt Lake City.
Nice.
In the middle of freaking February. But
yeah, when I was talking to work about it, they were like, "Yeah, that's fine. You can go. Just don't get snowed in." I'm like,
I know. I'm a little worried about that.
It'll be all right.
But Nathan, do you know anything about Black Ovis? You heard of them?
I think I have heard of them, but I know nothing about them.
So that's been our kind of our goal. Black Ovis is a company that's based out of Utah. They're a Western company, and they're trying to grow their footprint here in the Midwest. And so that's kind of the one of the reasons we're working with them, and one of the reasons they brought us on as a partner 4 years ago is to kind of get to that Midwestern person that doesn't really know. But Black Ovis, for the listener who doesn't know, is an online retailer. Is what they are. So imagine like a Shields or a Bass Pro online, and then they have their own line of
different types of
clothing.
Gear.
Nice.
And
they got some of the best merino wool out there.
Do they?
In my opinion.
The best merino wool out there. Yeah. And if you want to buy a tree stand or trail cams or whatever, that's what they do. They're a hunting retailer, and they only sell stuff on their site that they have vetted.
Nice.
Like, we like this stuff, we will sell it.
Tested it and proven it.
Exactly. Yeah. Because the owner of the company is an outdoorsman. He hunts all the time, all over the place. And then they've got a sister company, Camo Fire.
Oh, yeah.
Which is an app.
You know about Camo
I
Fire?
know about Camo
That's the
Fire.
same company. Camo Fire and Black Ovis are the same company, sister companies. Camo Fire actually started before Black Ovis, technically. And Camo Fire is that app that I get on each morning when I'm doing some duties. And
what are the deals of the day?
We might get to pick.
Did you talk to him about it?
I talked to our buddy.
Nice.
We might get to pick the deals.
Do we get to tell the percentage off?
I have no idea. 99.9% off.
Pay for shipping.
But sometimes you're just scrolling through and you buy stuff you didn't even realize you needed.
Yo, absolutely.
Yeah. There's always something good on there.
To this day, one of my favorite items is my gear hoist.
Really?
For my what do you call it? My saddle.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Hawk gear hoist. It's just paracord with a little carabiner on the end of it, and it's wrapped around like a kite. You remember when you were a kid, you flew kites?
Yep.
And it's just wrapped around that, and it's just quick and easy for me, and I stick it in my pouch for my thing, put my bow out, get it out, and then just climb the tree, and then pull it up.
Dude,
and I bought that from Camo Fire. Gosh, it's got to be 8 years ago at this point.
Nothing is worse than climbing up a tree and just using a rope or something and then trying to figure out how to untangle that sucker at the base of it, or then trying to get it back together when you're you're getting down.
It's been and then when I get down at night, I'll lower my bow back down and then I just toss it. Yeah. And then when I get down, I wrap it back up and move on. It's
nice.
It's been pretty sweet. I've got other gear hangers or gear hoists, but I don't use them. So that was a Camo Fire special. I think it was like $11. On X, use our code MWW20 for 20% off. That gets overdrive work for us this time of year. I'm guessing you use mapping services quite a bit. OnX, one of them?
OnX is my key piece that I use. It's able to help me when I get on site with the hunter, and I can pull those maps up and have them walk me through the shot, kind of where they think that deer was headed. It gives me a good idea of, not only the lay of the terrain, but looking at that topography and seeing, these are real steep bluffs. So if you have a wounded deer, he's probably not going to go up that bluff, and so I can kind of narrow down my search margins and start kind of gridding it that way. So it's a huge tool that I utilize, not only for the drone service, but even deer hunting myself and turkey hunting and all that stuff. So
that 3D exaggeration has been a
game changer
for me.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I was pretty good at reading maps, and then I get out to places, I'm like, this isn't what I thought.
Is that on the phone?
Yeah, you can do it on the phone too.
Yeah.
Yep.
So when we waterfowl hunt too,
Help you find those marshy areas.
Well, that's the biggest thing is looking at ponds. There's a lot of ponds that show that they have water in them, and then when you turn that 3D on, and they're like, oh shit, there's no water in there, and you're able to see more up to date mapping. It's pretty insane. So
it's one. They've done a lot of things. The rangefinder option is nice. It's like this last tournament we were doing, coyote tournament. It was really foggy in the mornings, and so none of our rangefinders were working.
Okay.
Because the laser just couldn't find anything.
Yeah.
And so I would just sit down and 2 fingers,
Yep.
250 yards, and that's close enough for government work.
Gives you a good rough estimate.
Athlon Optics, company based out of Lenexa, Kansas.
Yep.
Great folks out there. All of our rifles at this point, I don't even own a different scope anymore. I used to have a couple different ones, and they all got sold. And you ever used an Athlon scope?
I have not, but I've heard of them, and I've heard they're actually a really decent. They're
really
best bang for your buck is what I've heard.
Yeah.
Is if you don't want to spend $2,000 on a scope and you want a little bit something better, you're going to get good quality from them.
You can. They have it's called the Kronos. They've got a really high end one.
Okay.
They've got high end scopes, but that's what I like about them. They've got high end scopes and they've got scopes for $200.
Yeah.
And every single one of them is backed by a
lifetime
warranty, no questions asked.
And that's what people buy.
Yeah. And they stand behind it. I remember I had a scope. It was the Helos actually, and I'm gonna probably get made fun of for this, but when I was putting it on, I didn't realize it didn't have a locking turret on one of the turrets, and so I'm sitting there screwing with it, and I ended up like banging it, thinking it was like stuck on the counter, and I finally like get to look in it, and it's not locking. It's an unlocking turret, so that's why it wasn't going up. And so I ended up reaching out to Athlon. I'm like, hey, I screwed up, and I ended up banging this thing because I thought it was already broken. And he's like, sounds like it is broken. And I'm like, probably. Although it looks like it probably works. He goes, we'll replace it.
It sounds like it's broken.
Yeah. And that's the type of company they are, and they're good folks. Alps Outdoors, they've got just a myriad of stuff. Use our code 2024 Woods Water. I'm not sure if it still works or not. We're still kind of working out details with them. But it was a 30% code. Try it out. All kinds of awesome stuff. Packs.
Camping, hunting.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I use the Elite Pack out west.
Yeah.
They've got, and now the Elite Pack comes in a 5,500 or something like that cubit.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, they've got all three options.
Dog, huh?
Yeah, so they got the 18, the 33, and the 55, somewhere in there. And actually the 33, they make a attachment to it that turns it into like a 5,000.
Wow.
That's just like it hooks to the back,
Man,
so you don't have to actually put
that's like multiple days out. I feel like I could make what we got now, the 33s.
Yeah,
I could make that 33 last 2 days.
You think?
I bet I could.
In Wyoming, the 33 lasted me 2 days, but sometimes I wished I had a little more, just a little more room. And so that 55, I think you could get 4 or 5 days, 4 days out of it easily.
So you say it goes from 33 to 55 almost?
Somewhere in there.
It's nice having that flexibility, though.
Yeah, and it's not really going to be that much bigger. And they all use the same frame. All those packs are on the same frame. So you just undo the pack and put the new one on.
Buy one frame and you can get all three.
I've got all three of them in the basement over here.
Nice.
So, yeah, they're pretty sweet. And then, stuff like the tri-leg stool, cheap little $20 stool, that's what we coyote hunt all the time. When we're hunting off the ground, I think you listened to our show where my son and I killed that big buck off the ground. We were both sitting in a tri-leg stool.
Really?
That's just, when I'm ground hunting, that is with me. So when I go in with my saddle stuff, because sometimes I don't know if I'm going to be on the ground or in my saddle, just depends on what I find. And if I like the trees, I'll get up in a tree, and if I don't, I'll sit. So the saddle is always with my stuff. Or not the saddle, I'm sorry, the tri-leg stool.
Okay.
It's always with my sticks.
Yep.
And then if I don't need it, if I'm going to climb, I just sit at the base of the tree.
That's nice.
And go up.
Yeah,
and then
nice.
if I use it, all the saddle stuff sits on the ground. So I've found that several times, especially with this new property we hunted this year. You'd get somewhere and you're like, not so sure I like any trees here, or they're all crap. You just end up sitting on the ground. So that Tri-Lake stool has been worth its weight in gold.
Definitely.
For us.
Habitat Works. Use the code. Well, you
no
got to
code.
mention us. Yeah, just mention us.
Just call Dustin, man.
Yeah, give him a call.
816-752-7390. He's one of the smartest land people you will ever meet. We are going to have multiple shows with him this year about different topics. And so we're excited to do some stuff with him again. And then finally, Reveal Cameras by Tactacam. I went and pulled cameras on 2 different properties this last weekend. Found one of your cameras in the snow.
Yeah, I remember you called me, and you're like, dude, I think someone stole your camera.
Yeah.
And I got to thinking, I was like, well, that sucks. And then after you hung up, you found it. Ended up finding it. I was like, oh, yeah, I remember that thing fell over.
It was weird because it was on a post, on one of the Reveal posts.
Yeah.
And the post was sitting there. Like, not perfectly straight up, but not like over on the ground. It was just, and I'm like, where's the camera?
Right.
So immediately I thought, oh, this camera's gone. And I ended up kicking about like 3 feet worth of freaking dead leaves out, trying to find it. And I ended up just stepping on the antenna in the snow, pull it out, and the cover is open, and it's got all lights on taking pictures of me.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
so,
crazy.
That's something to say.
That's
I mean,
pretty cool.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Tactacam is game changer for sure, too. I mean, we use it for waterfowl all the time.
Really? Do you really?
Yeah, so we'll, deer hunting is game changer because it allows you not to go into disturbed areas you don't want to go into every single 2 weeks. You're up at your farm or your lease or whatever it is. But we got several ponds that we'll throw Tactacam out, and we'll wait for the birds to get there. And when the birds get there, that's when we go in and hunt. And
I never thought about that.
And so we'll take an ice ripper, open up the hole if it's frozen over, and we'll be able to see what's there. And it's game changer knowing which pond to hunt, and it helps with scouting a little bit for sure. So
I have never thought of. I mean, I don't give a shit, but I've also never.
It's not that we don't give a shit. It's that we haven't gone down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So we didn't think
about it. I'm trying to. My brain has to continue not to care about it at all.
Right.
Because if you let one little within 6 months, I'll have another addiction, and that just can't be happening.
$1,500 in decoys.
It just cannot be happening in my life.
Yeah. You ought to come waterfowl hunting with us.
No, can't do it, man.
Can't do it.
Got too many crutches.
You know
already.
why? Because I went coyote hunting one time, and 14 different rifles later, and thermals and all this crap later, and I went bow fishing one time with these guys, and I haven't really fell off. But I enjoy it. And we've bought bows, and now Andy bought a boat 2 years ago. He hasn't done much with it.
He hasn't done. He bought it, and that was it.
But still,
I promise you, I'll take you on a really bad hunt, and you won't.
So I'll hate it so bad. I'm like, well, that was stupid. I've duck hunted one time in my life. My brother-in-law took me on like a family pond or lake, and I think like a handful of ducks came in, and it was cool, like hearing them, just all of a sudden.
Yeah.
I missed every time I shot, and I've never goose hunted, nor do I want to, just because I know it's going to be fun.
It's super fun. You can shoot the shit out there in the blind. You don't have to worry about scent control.
You can just be loud and make. I've seen some of these guys making breakfast and freaking. Oh my god, yeah. It looks like it'd be a hoot, but I like my marriage. Is the other thing.
Yep.
So
I hear you.
that's our sponsors for today. Thank you, everybody. This is kind of that time of year where we got to make changes and plans on what we're doing for 2025, and we couldn't do this show without them. So thanks to all of them, and make sure you patronize them. Is that the right word?
I don't know.
I think it is.
Sure.
Make sure you patronize, those sponsors. They
buy their shit.
Buy their shit. Yeah. But yeah, let's talk drones. So my first question is, you said you were bored. Basically, you had to find something to do, but there's a lot of things you can do. There's strip clubs.
There's bars.
There's crack. There's all kinds of things you can try.
Yeah.
What made you say I'm gonna try doing drone deer recovery? Like where did that come from?
Yeah, I just have a huge passion for the outdoors. Whenever I can, I am either trying to hunt, I'm scouting, I'm doing whatever it is to get in the outdoors, and sitting behind a desk all day is pretty boring. And so with all my free time, I was like, I saw Mike up in Ohio doing it, and I was just like, I think I can do that. And I've flown a little drone before I got this one, so I was familiar with them. And again, I really wanted to be able to flip the script on someone's success story, whether it was a first-time hunter, whether it was their biggest deer, or whether they're just trying to recover the buck that they shot, target buck, whatever it was. And I also went into it too. I was, with the amount of people that aren't getting into hunting, and it's kind of a dying breed. You hunter out, for instance, and they go hunting and they make a bad shot,
right,
and their hopes get let down, and they might never hunt again. And so I was like, if I can find one kid that I can flip the script and recover that deer, they might be hooked for life.
Right.
And so that was part of it. It just kind of blew up. There's a ton of operators in the state of Missouri. There's going to be a lot of drone equipment for sale, I think, at the end of this season.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people aren't getting calls like they thought they would. But if you go out and you do a great job for people and you provide the best service, you're gonna do pretty decent in this space.
So I mean, you made the decision to do it.
Mm-hmm.
The first step would be to purchase your drone, I'm guessing, right?
Yep.
I mean, I'm guessing you thought of your name, which, by the way, your last name just kind of that made it easy.
Yeah, it did.
I mean, I don't even know why you had to ask people.
Yeah.
What do you think for a name at Burd Eye?
I sent it to a couple buddies, and I was like, what do you think of these 6 names? And they were like, you got to go with Burd Eye. And I was like, all right. I was like,
it's pretty simple.
Yeah, no brainer there.
Say less.
But yeah, so by the way, kids, don't do crack or go to strip clubs. Just saying. But so you had to purchase your drone. So the first, I mean, that technology has changed probably so much since, like, Mike has been doing it for several years now. When he first started doing it, I'm guessing the amount of drone options has quadrupled. All the different things you can do with drones. What did you look for? Did you say, hey, I've got this much to spend.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I'm going to try to find under it, or did you start looking for options? And like, what made you choose whatever the hell that is?
Yeah, so this is a DJI Matrice 30T, and so there's a couple options. DJI owns probably 90% of the market. They are the sole leader with capabilities, their drone quality, the parts. And so when I was looking, I was primarily looking at them. I did search other, U.S.-based drone companies, but they just didn't have the capabilities that DJI did.
Gotcha.
And so really there was 2 options when it came to thermal drones with DJI. You had the M3T and then the M30T. And so the M3T is probably, like, I'd say a quarter to a third of the size of this drone. It's a lot smaller.
And that's not even very big.
Yeah, and so that drone is probably about, I don't know, give or take $4 or $5 grand. And you can get by with it, but the big difference is this drone right here can fly in inclement weather. And so when it's snowing, when it's raining, I can fly when you can't. And
probably like battery life and stuff like that too, right?
Yeah, so battery life, this one does have a little bit longer than the M3T, but really, so what the difference is between this and the M3T also is it has a 200 times zoom on it, versus the M3T has, I think, like a 5, 10, 15 times zoom. I don't even remember. I did this so long ago, but
you don't remember the details about the thing you didn't buy.
Exactly.
Right.
So I can be up 350 feet in the air, and when I turn on my infrared light, when I find that heat signature, when I put on the infrared light, I can zoom in, being 350 feet up in the air, and I can tell you exactly where that deer has been shot.
Oh, wow.
And so if you were to walk outside, Micah, and put your hands up and hold fingers, and I was 350 feet up in the air, I'd be able to tell you how many fingers you're holding.
That's pretty impressive.
So
that is cool.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
It's like 7 degrees outside, but we almost have to see what this thing does.
I'm kind of hoping he messes with it whenever we
yeah,
get done for a little
we
bit.
can definitely throw it up, and I can show you some of the capabilities. Maybe there'll be a coyote out back.
I'm willing to bet money there's a coyote.
There was this morning.
If he's there, I'll find him.
Yeah. So there's not. I was expecting there to be like our thermal scopes for our guns. There's dozens of companies.
Yeah.
And each company has a dozen options, and it is overwhelming is not the term I want to use, but there's a lot to think about. There's 640, there's 384, there's all kinds of different options when it comes to zoom capabilities and all these things. So I just assumed that drones were kind of the same way, where there's 150 different options, and you got to figure out which one works for you.
There's really not a ton of options out there,
which is probably like for me, that'd be a good thing.
Yeah, and so being in the drone space and having previous drones, I knew about the different manufacturers of them. And again, the quality of DJI versus some of your other drone companies, it's just superior to them. And so when I was looking, I did look at them, and based off the schematics and what their specs were, I was like, doesn't even compare to it. So kind of pushed those to the side and started focusing on DJI, and they only had 2 options at the time, and I was like, well, I can go the cheaper route,
A
which
or B.
With that, or I can invest some of the money and be able to have a few more capabilities in that smaller drone.
If you're anything like me, Micah, I'll be honest, you do a good job of being happy with what you have. Like,
thanks.
And I don't, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't be like, damn, I wish I would have got that one.
Right.
But if you're anything like me and there's 2 options and one option has more features, more things, I almost always am like, wish I would have bought the more expensive one.
Yeah.
After the fact.
Most of the time, though, you're a buy once, cry once guy. And I would assume probably in the drone world, that's probably pretty close to the same.
Yeah, and that's the thing, too, is like if I kept telling myself, I was like, I base my company off quality service, and I want to give the best possible scenario when my customers call me to go out and locate their deer. And so I wanted to invest that money and to spend up, if I'm going to charge these people money to come out and find their deer, I want to give them the best possibility to recover that deer in every scenario. So,
and in a lot of things, now this is not true. My dad said this to me back in the day, and I feel like in a lot of spaces it does ring true, but the term you get what you pay for.
Yeah, oh yeah.
A lot of times that is true.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's other times where I'm like, actually, Huntworth gear compared to Sitka.
Yeah.
You can't prove to me that Sitka's worth double.
Yeah.
Now I'm saying it's good.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you that Huntworth coat's just as good. Right. And so there's times where I don't always believe it, but I'm guessing in this, like, you go buy a $2,000 drone compared to a $10,000, $15,000 drone or whatever. You're going to see the difference pretty obviously.
When it comes to technology, I'd have to agree. I mean, it's like going to buy a TV. You go spend $2,000 on a TV, you're going to see a difference in $100 TV.
Yeah,
for sure.
So you came up with your drone. What do you have to do, like, legally to be able to fly and use this?
Curious about that.
Yeah. So to fly commercially and to get revenue out of a drone business, you have to have your Part 107. So I had to study up a little bit, and then I had to go into an FAA certified testing center and take a test, and I have to maintain that every 2 or 3 years. I've written down a spreadsheet again, not worrying about it till about two or 3 years. But you have to take that, and then once you have that, you're ready to go. And so with that test, it goes through all of the FAA airspace regs, all that stuff. So knowing, you can't fly when you're X amount, close to an airport, or and on my controller, it will show the airspaces around it. So I'll be able to say, I can't fly in there, or I have to go get permission and submit something to be able to fly in that.
And that can take time, right? Like that can take weeks to get that permission from.
It depends. So luckily, I haven't had to do that yet.
Right.
So I haven't experienced messing with that request yet. But sometimes when you submit a Lance, if someone has already submitted it and you are just trying to fly, with a Part 107, and when you're flying a drone, the max you can fly is 400 feet. Unless you're at a tall structure, you can go 400 feet above that structure if you're doing some sort of observation on the structure, if you're surveying it, stuff like that. But so if you I guess if you have the drone and you're trying to figure all that stuff out, it is very helpful to have that Part 107. So you don't have the FAA calling you and being like, what the hell? Did you guys see the California fires? And there was a tanker out there that's, putting water out, and a drone hit one of the tankers.
Oh, jeez.
The one that scoops the water out of the lake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
put a hole in it.
So FBI, FAA, they're investigating. And
did you see the Eagles Packers game? The playoff game?
Yep.
There was a drone outside the stadium, and they would have shut the game down if it actually
crossed into the
stadium.
Yeah.
I guess it didn't. But
so I'm glad I'm not that pilot out there in California that was flying, because they are just fucked, and they'll find them. So
well, that drone didn't make it, I'm sure.
I would say probably not.
But I'm
it put a hole in the plane, did it not?
You said what?
It put a hole in the plane.
Yeah, I thought it was like a three,
That's what I thought.
like a foot to 3 foot.
They
hole
lost
in the
a
plane.
lot of water.
Oh yeah,
for putting the fire out.
Yeah, they had to land it.
Drone, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some type of serial number or something like that on there that's bonded to you. So whenever they look that up, your name comes up.
Although I picture this old dude or something at the lake just enjoying his day. These fires are stressing me out. I'm gonna go fly my drone and he's sitting there just hovering. And oh man, this is beautiful. And next thing you know, just a shoom, a big ass plane, and he's probably like, "What the hell just happened?"
Yeah.
I kind of picture that dude that just has no idea what just happened.
Yeah.
Of course, I don't know the whole story, but
he went back into his cabin trying to hide.
Right now, he's like, "Well, that was a bad idea." But,
but
anyway,
you have to have his serial number and register your drone with the FAA too. So that serial number is with them, and they track all that stuff too. So, like I said, the guy out in California, he's gonna be in a bad
situation.
A lot of fines coming his way, I'm sure.
I'd say so.
Interesting.
He might be the owner of a plane here soon.
Little off topic, but you said you can only go up to 400 feet.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
What's the capability of that thing? How high could you fly that thing if you wanted to?
Shit. Probably as high as you want to until it runs out, but I haven't tried it.
Until you lose connection.
Yeah. It's all about connection. I mean,
I know my son got this little toy drone
Mm-hmm.
2 or 3 years ago for Christmas, and it was just a little bit of a breeze the day he decided to get crazy, and so he got it 150 feet up in the air, and the wind took it. Oh my gosh! I mean, I barely could see it over there by the time. And he lost connection and couldn't control it.
Yeah.
We ended up finding it in the farmer's field the next morning or 2 days ago. But it kept connection for quite a while because he was trying to get it back. And it's just a cheap little toy drone that was like this big.
Yeah.
You shouldn't even had it outside.
One of those Temu ones?
I don't even know. And but it did a good job.
That thing's rated to go about. It says it can go 9 to 10 miles out.
Holy crap.
However, that's all dependent. I mean, that is perfect conditions,
right.
no interference with the signal. I've had it at about 1.5 miles max.
Get you a little worried.
Yeah, it goes in and out of signal, and that's because you got trees, you got hills, you got buildings, all that stuff around, and so that's kind of what I've maxed it out. And if we have to move, we move, but that, and then it's rated to fly in about 50-mile-an-hour winds.
Wow.
Damn, and so the most I've flown it in is about 40-mile-an-hour winds, and it did fantastic.
Fine.
Yeah. So it's a beast when it's up in the air, and it can get through and rip. So it goes about 50 miles an hour when I put it in sport mode. So
I want one.
It's flying pretty quick.
Yeah.
See, I want one for I think it would be handier than hell for like scouting.
Well, and we're going to talk about that at some point because there's other
applications.
What would I like? Other revenue streams.
Oh,
let's talk about.
So
you
many
know
different things
that are outside of just the drone deer recovery.
Oh yeah.
That I'm sure you're thinking about. After today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you can't do this in Kansas yet. Sounds like, which sucks. You're right there in Kansas City.
Yep.
Although I guess not in Illinois either.
Can't do it in Illinois. Can't do it in Iowa.
So how many states do you know off the top of your head? I mean, I know Ohio's one of them that you can do it.
Ohio,
and now Missouri.
Ohio, Pennsylvania.
Which surprises me that Missouri is allowing.
Oh
it.
yeah,
I'm happy about it, but it surprises me.
I was shocked when they legalized it as quick as they did because Kansas, Missouri are usually one of the later states to incorporate things. But at the end of the day, I'm happy for it because think of how many deer have been lost just because they lose blood trail or rain comes in and washes the blood.
So let's talk about a call.
Okay.
You get a call from a hunter.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where I want to tie into dogs too.
Sure.
Because Matt Davis with Broken Arrow, right?
Yep.
Recovery. We've had him on the show. He's a great guy. We've, texted back and forth. He's went and found several deer friends. When you think about calling a dog or a drone, you call them, and what's some of the things you do right off the bat when a hunter calls you? Do you ask the same sort of questions that Matt asks, or are you just like, I'll come find it? Like what's the difference between I guess that sort of setup?
Yeah, and I don't know what kind of questions he asks, but yeah, when someone calls,
it's usually just shot related. Like, hey, how did you feel about the shot? Do you know exactly where the shot was? Do you have video of the shot? What did the deer do? How did it act? That's just that sort of stuff. Did you bump it? Did you go looking for it? All those things.
Yeah, and I would say we're kind of right on par with that.
Yeah.
And when someone calls me, I want to be confident when I go out there that again, I'm not wasting customers' money and time, and kind of want to walk them through what my opinions are of what this deer is, whether it's a 4, 6, 12 hour, 15 plus hour. We need to wait until we go in and try and recover that steer. And but yeah, when they call me, I'll have them walk me through the shot. I'll ask them, how far was the shot? Was he broadside, quartering to you, quartering away? Where do you think you hit him? Was it a pass through? When the deer ran, did it have its tail tucked? What was the deer's mannerisms when it was running? To try and get an idea, and that gives me an idea with the information they provide, which I'll say half the time people call me, they're like, "Oh, it just happened way too fast," and and I don't know.
They're like, "I can't find him, but I double lunged his ass."
Yeah.
Well, those two things don't usually go hand in hand.
Yeah, there's been a lot of times they're like, I swear I center punched him, and it was right in the in the sweet
buck fever
spot.
is a legitimate thing. I'm not.
Your adrenaline's
I'm not laughing at anybody for that. Yeah,
it happens.
Yeah, but those are the kind of the questions I'll ask, and then based off that, I'll tell them, I can be out there in X amount of hours, or I can come right now. And
so I'm guessing you have those nights where you have to say no because you're already going. You're on your way to St. Joe to go do one. And some guy calls you in Harrisonville and needs you to come, and you can't be. I mean, hey, I can come later potentially, but this is a perfect spot to, I guess, talk about this. So because I hear a lot of this, and I want to I want to give my opinion on it. So the next thing they always ask you is what? How much?
Yep.
So what are some of the chart? Like, do you charge for mileage, and what's like an average that someone can expect to spend?
So I would say, I'm in a group with
different ones.
Yeah. I'd say a majority of the licensed and insured drone operators in the state of Missouri. And I would say the average that someone is charging is about $350 to $400 to show up. And
I was gonna say that's cheaper than I assumed.
And
I saw one post one day, and I want to say it was like $500 to show up, and I was like, "Ooh, that's a little."
But let's table that. Continue.
Yeah, and then usually if you locate the deer, it's another $100.
It's like a bonus.
Yep. It's kind of like a
good boy.
That's my challenge. Go find the deer to get paid a
Get
little
a
bit more,
bonus.
and then anything outside of 60-mile radius, I'll charge $1 per mile for fuel and for maintenance on the vehicle, all that stuff. But again, I understand it. Being a deer hunter, I know you got taxidermist bill on top of that. You got processing, all that stuff. So
I understand all those things.
Yeah.
And it's this, Matt and the dog guys get the same questions.
Yep.
And I get it. It is hard to spend money, when you don't expect to have spent money.
Oh, yeah.
But the way I look at it is this. You spend, let's just talk about bow hunters right now. You spend thousands on a bow.
Oh, yeah.
You spend hundreds on arrows. You spend potentially hundreds on your broadheads if you're an idiot like me and go buy $150 for 3 broadheads. You spend how much on your tree stands, your saddles, all the different stuff, right?
Yeah.
You'll spend $1,500
$1,500
for a taxidermy bill on that same deer.
Yep.
But you don't want to drop $500 to find it.
Yeah.
And which, like I said, I understand, but to me, there's two arguments. If you're going to make that phone call, it's probably a deer that means a lot to you,
Sure.
whether it's a big buck or it's your first buck. Like, I'd spend $500 if he shot a 140-inch deer this year and we had to try to find it because it's my son.
Yep.
But it probably means a lot to you, and there's a chance to find it that you might not have otherwise. Don't you kind of owe it to that animal
100%.
to do everything you can? And I understand that, it's going to cost you $500, but it costs you $500 when you back into someone's bumper and you have to get it painted for them.
Yep.
Or whatever. I mean, not that it's kind of like that idiot tax. I'm not trying to say it that way.
Yeah.
But to me, your shot was marginal enough that you're not sure it's dead or you're not sure where it is.
Mm-hmm.
This is where, shit, it's kind of like, hey, it's going to cost me $500 more.
Got pay a piper.
Yeah, whether it's you wait a year to get it, mounted because you got to save that $500 back.
Sure.
I mean, aren't you happy if you find it?
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, there's a lot. I'll be on Facebook pages or whatever, and somebody will say, call, I hit a deer this far back, and somebody will say, call for a drone or call for a dog, and then the reply is, that shit's too expensive. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Well, then why did you shoot the deer? I mean, if you're just going for meat, then why did you, why are you so worried about finding them? That sort of stuff. So, I mean, it's kind of 6 of one, half dozen the other. You want to pay the piper or do you not? And I feel like sometimes it's just like that's the one thing, well, I don't need to be paying this, and so I'm not going to try to, do it. Maybe I'll just keep walking. But
That's kind of my biggest thing. You hit the nail right on the head is, why shoot the deer if you're not going to try and spend every means necessary to recover that deer? You do owe it to that deer. If you're a true outdoorsman and trying to recover that deer, whether it's for meat on the table, whether it's your target buck, your biggest buck, your first buck.
Yeah.
I think you owe it to the animal, and just like you said, every bow hunter, every gun hunter, they spend thousands of dollars on equipment, tags, stands,
blinds,
everything.
Yeah.
Fuel to get to where they got to go, potentially.
Leases on those pieces of property, possibly.
Yeah. So
I'm guessing you have not done, if any, recoveries on does. But and I guess I understand that.
Yeah.
But because it's hard to know who a doe is. Like,
Sure.
if you're after the same buck for 5 years, you know who he is.
Yeah.
It's hard to know exactly what one doe is unless she's got a feature on her that is obvious, like,
albino.
Albino. Yeah, that would be different. But
that'd be a trophy.
Which is this? I mean, she honestly deserves the same respect that the buck that you're looking for gets. But I'm guessing there's a lot of folks that lose does that are not going to go, get a drone.
It's not in devil's advocate here. It's not like that thing's going to waste. Coyotes are going to eat it.
She's going to be used.
It's going to get used.
Yeah.
So my first probably 4, 5, 6 recoveries I did were all does.
Are you shitting me?
And
that's surprising.
I figured you'd never done one.
And they were all people I knew.
Right. Okay.
But all of them were sub-marginal shots, and I purposely told them, we were up at our farm, and I purposely told them, I said, if you shoot a doe, leave it. I said I want to get some. I want to get some experience.
Yeah.
So when it does come time towards the rut and people are calling, I can go in with confidence, knowing that hey, I'm going to be able to find that deer for them. And so we were up at our farm, and my uncle, he used to play for Mizzou football, and so he had 5 or 6 of his football buddies up there, and one guy shot a doe, and it ran back into our big timber lot, and I was honestly pretty nervous. It was the first time I was going to do it, and I was like, man, it's like the leaves are on. It's heavy foliage right now. It's going to be tough.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had 5 or 6 60-year-old men standing behind me
watching,
and I throw it up.
I'd be more worried about wrecking the fucking thing than I would finding the deer.
That's the thing.
I just wrecked my damn drone.
I was like, how embarrassing would that be if I put the drone up on the first recovery and it fell out of the sky? But, no, I found it in 2 minutes 45 seconds.
Nice.
Awesome. And I tell you what, I've never seen more 60-year-old men act like kids in a candy shop and just freak out, and it was pretty cool to be a part of. I was like, if I get that reaction every time, I said that's part of the reason why I do it. I said that's awesome, and so did probably 3 or 4 that weekend actually, just going around different scenarios. There was one in a cornfield that I was looking for, several in the timber, and then some in tall brush and on a power line and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So again, just wanted to get that confidence, and I'd recommend any drone operator, anybody who wants to get into it, is to do those first few recoveries for free, just to get that experience before you go charging someone $400 or $500.
Right.
Because you don't really know what the hell you're doing yet.
Yeah, because you want to be fair to your customer, and you got to be careful, because there's some drone operators out there that might not have the same equipment and might not have that experience, and they'll go out there for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and like, oh well, can't find them,
right.
And then you're at $400 or $500, and I've spent 3+ hours looking for a deer before.
No shit.
And literally have spent every means necessary to where the hunter says there's literally nowhere else that you could fly to find this deer. And I went through probably 70, 80 different deer I looked at, and yeah, so it's pretty crazy. But
yeah,
I will spend a decent amount of time looking for the deer until I find it.
That's cool.
And
has that been your longest track job? The 3
yeah,
hours?
Yeah, 3+ hours. And I even called in another pilot to come help me, and he couldn't find it either. And so again, with my customers, I'm going to spend every means necessary to try and recover that deer, whether that means calling in another pilot or, spending 3 hours out there until there's nowhere else to look. So
yeah. So you've been doing it a year now.
Yep.
The service for a year. So you said you've been on like 25 or so this year.
So yeah, I've gotten a ton more calls than that, and so I've
had to say no a lot more than you would probably.
I was going to say, I've personally done 25 calls.
Mm-hmm.
I've turned down probably 24 calls in Kansas, several 200-inch deer in Kansas, which is unfortunate.
Yep.
And then when I am in Kansas City, I got people calling me in Northeast Missouri.
Right.
And
that's a long drive.
I will pass them off to some operators I know up there, to try and spread the wealth a little bit. And then when I'm back in, when I'm at my farm and I got calls around the Kansas City area, I got pilots I know back here that I trust, have the same equipment, operate the same way, and I'll pass them those calls. I think I passed 4 calls in 2 days to one person. And so I kept calling him, and he was like, hey, what's up? And I said, hey, I got a call for you. And
like, what the hell are you coming back?
Yeah. And then I call him again in about an hour. I said, hey, I got another call for you. And he was like, okay, I'll head there next. And then later that night, I call him 2 hours later and said, hey, can you go out in the morning? I got another call for you. And he was like, keep it coming, man. He's like,
so you can run these during the day?
You can.
They're better. I mean, they probably don't do as well with as much heat.
Yeah.
Probably, but
so really, what I tell my customers, again, I want to give them the best opportunity and the best scenario. So at nighttime, it's obviously
better,
perfect thermals. during the day when you have cloud cover and you don't have that sun out, it's real easy to fly 'em because you aren't getting that heat retained in rocks and trees and all that stuff. If the sun is out, I'll tell customers and say, hey, let's give the deer some time. Let's wait till the thermals drop. It gets dark out, and then that's when I'll come out. So
right, makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same thing with our thermals. You can use them during the day. They're just not as effective.
Yeah.
Because everything's warmer.
But I will say, when you get cloud cover on, it's
much better.
Oh,
It doesn't really make a
Well,
difference.
and
it doesn't make a difference.
I sight in my rifle during the day just because that's when I have time.
Yep.
And cloudier days are easier to do it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But,
yeah.
So I'm just curious, kind of like some of your craziest calls.
Yeah.
I don't know how much you can say.
Yeah.
But like, this is just your first year, but I mean, what's a few of your favorite or your craziest things that you've seen already?
I'll tell you two. So I'll start off with one. It actually happened in your guys' county.
Oh, yeah, you already talked about this one.
Yeah, and so I had the cops called on me, and so I had a hunter call me, and it was during gun season, and he shot a deer, and I was coming from another call, and so I got to him about 11 o'clock and 11:30 or so, and we were searching, and he shot this deer with a 30-06, and I found him about 950 yards away.
Gotcha.
And so when I located the deer, he was probably in like a 5 to 10 acre field behind some guy's house. And so I told the guys, like, man, I don't really like dropping the drone down to really, get into someone's privacy, all that stuff. But I said, I'll do it real quick and then I'll pop back out and we'll see if it's your deer. And so we popped down. It was his deer. And I was like, this is my advice. I was like, I'd go knock on the guy's door in the morning and
let them know my deer's dead back there.
See if you can go in and recover it, because when I'm in there, I don't need permission to fly over people's property.
Right.
However, if you want to go recover the deer, you still got to get that permission to go on their land and get it. And so I was like, that's what I would suggest. Let the deer have the night, because it was still alive.
Okay.
And it was kind of a high shot, but it didn't spine him. It was just right underneath the spine.
Kind of that area you're not sure if he does
gonna
die. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of in like the muscle meat area almost. Yeah. And so so the next day about 11 o'clock, I text him and I'm like, hey, did you have any luck? And he says, you got time for a call? I got a story for you. And I was like, okay. So he calls me up and he says, so I did what you said. I went and I started driving down this guy's driveway, and it was really weird because it was like a brand new house, had solar panels, but everything was overgrown. And so I go up, I knock on the door, can't get anything. So, I back out and, then I start making phone calls, trying to see if anybody knows him. And I get a number, can't get a hold of the guy.
Right.
And so then I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, the only thing I can think of is to call the game warden. And so he calls the game warden and he says, hey, so I shot a deer last night and I had a drone out trying to locate the deer, and I found him, but I can't get a hold of the guy. And the game warden says, so you're the guy with the drone. And he was like, yeah, I hired him out. And he was like, well, the cops got called on you last night. And by this time, I already packed up, headed back home, and we were gone. And he was like, the cops got called out on you. And he was like, well, are we good? And he says, well, the guy that you are trying to get a hold of, he's a full-blown doomsdayer. And so he saw your red and green lights when you were flying last night, and he thought it was a attack on his house.
Oh gosh.
And so he called the sheriff. He thought it was a full-blown attack coming for his house and coming for him, and he said he was prepared. So I started laughing. I was like, well, so it's funny that he was a doomsdayer, but I was like, what the hell is he doing up at midnight looking out his window?
Doomsday shit, man.
Yeah,
you never know, bro. That's when it's going to go down.
Yeah, and so so he was like, let me make some phone calls. And so game warden called him back and said, here you go. Call this number. He should answer. And so he called him, and he was like, yeah, come on out. And so the hunter ended up going out there, knocking on his door. He answered, and he started talking to him, and he was like, I apologize. I had a drone out last night. Didn't mean to scare you or anything. He was like, man, I thought it was a full-blown attack on my house, and he's like, I've been prepping for this my whole life, and he was like, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know if it was aliens or if it was government or what it was.
Nope, just looking for a deer.
Yeah.
You're
And,
lucky it didn't get shot out of the air.
well, yeah, I know. I was like, whew, that could have been bad.
Like, how low did you drop it?
I dropped it probably to like 100 feet, so it wasn't
Still
too
like
low.
not too low.
Right.
Yeah, and I've dropped this probably 50, 60 feet above a deer, and they don't even care it's there.
That's crazy.
And they'll just be feeding, and doesn't bother them one bit. But so they're talking. He's like, well, my deer's back there. He's like, do you mind if I go and look and see if he's dead back there? And he was like, man, I'm going to be honest with you. When the sheriff came out here, I got him to walk out there with me because I didn't know what you guys were doing out there.
Shit.
And I guarantee you we bumped your deer. And he was like, but go ahead, go back there, take a peek and see what you can see. And so, he walks back there and he walks to the bed and found blood and all that stuff. Deer wasn't there.
Oh, God.
And so looks around a little bit and comes out, and he's getting ready to leave, and the doomsdayer, he says, hey, man, what's your name? And so Hunter tells him his name, and he was kind of skeptical telling him that. He's like, I'm just curious because I keep a journal of everything that happens out here, and every single day to the detail, to the minute and everything. And I want to write about this today. This is pretty interesting. And,
I mean, it is.
Yeah, and so he's writing it, and he was like, but it gets better. And I was like, okay. And he says, so then he's like, where exactly do you hunt? And so he showed him what property he was hunting and everything. And he was like, well, I got, a ton of acreage back here, and no one hunts it. So if you want to hunt it all, it's all fair game. He was
damn.
He was like, you have permission to hunt it. He said, just let me know, and you can come hunt it. And he said, my jaw was dropped when I heard those words come out of his mouth. And he says, at that point, I almost didn't even care about the deer anymore because I just got permission on, I think it was like 100 or 150 acres. And he was like, best money I've ever spent. And
did he ever end up finding the deer?
He did not. And
after
it was one of those shots where I even told him, I said, I think it's,
it might not die.
60-40 this deer is going to live just based off where the location of it is. It wasn't going to hit any of the vitals, and I think it was more in that meat and muscle area. And then second story, so I was sitting at my family. We do family dinner every Sunday night, and so I was sitting with them. It was 5:30, and meals just coming out. Mom cooks, and we're all getting ready to sit down at the table, and I get a call from a guy that I recovered a 184-inch deer earlier that year, or earlier in the year. And he called me and said, hey, if you don't have pictures in an hour, I'm going to need you. And he's, up in the Macon area, so he's 2.5 hours from me. And I'm thinking, he's like, it's Sunday night. I'm sitting here eating dinner with my family, and I was like, I might just pass this one off to another drone operator. And
right.
So about 30 minutes later go by, and, we're still eating. And, I take the phone call real quick, and he's like, I'm going to need you. And he was like, did you get my pictures? And I was like, no, I didn't get any pictures. And so he sent me it, and this deer had 4 main beams. And so pictures are very deceiving on trail cam, right? And
they can be, yeah.
And so I looked at the deer, and I was like, no, it's 175-inch deer, 180-inch deer probably. I was like, that's a pretty good deer. I was like, I'd like to be a part of that. So I go back to the table, and my wife's sitting next to me, and I'm just like, eat faster. And I said, I got to go. And my dad's like, you're crazy for driving all the way up there to, on Sunday night. And, I got work the next morning. And
gotta see this deer though.
Yeah, I was like, it's probably a pretty good deer. And so I was like, 4 main beams. You don't see 4 main beams very often.
No.
And so I drive 2.5 hours up there, and I get there probably about, I don't know, 10:30. And I get the drone up in there, and he's like, man, He said, my biggest deer, this is the hunter, he's like, my biggest deer I've shot is a 140-inch deer. And he was like, I almost didn't even call you because I don't really care about deer, to be honest with you, that much. But this guy was telling me to call you, and this is a deer that I'm going to want to do. And so, I put the drone up, and there was a field where he got shot, and then to the southeast, probably – I don't know, there's probably 800-yard woodlot in between, but there was another field to the southeast that they were getting pictures of, and they said this deer was running back and forth between these two fields, and that's the way the deer went into the woods.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I get there, the hunter's telling me about it, and he's like, I shot this deer at 350 yards and dropped him. And so he's like, yeah, I'm just walking up there, and I get to about 50 yards, and this deer pops up and takes off. And so
I get a shitty feeling, I will say.
Oh, dude.
I get my gun up, and so I shoot again, and I think I missed him, and then I shoot again, and I hit him, and he went into some thick stuff, and he was like, I thought he laid down there, but I gave it probably 20 minutes or so before I walked over there, and when I got over there, deer wasn't there. And so they looked for blood, and the crazy part, snow was on the ground, so they couldn't even find blood in the snow. And so he was headed back kind of towards this field, and so I was like, well, I've had a lot of deer double back on me this year, and so I said, I'm going to start up here and work my way over there. And I had the drone up, and in 10 minutes I found the deer, and he was 450 yards to the northeast, and they're like, we would have never found that deer.
Never went that way.
And so after about 10 minutes, I was like, well, shit. I was like, I didn't drive 2.5 hours not to go, get my hands on this deer. So I was like, I'll help drag him out with you guys. And we'll get some pictures and all that stuff. And we walk up to the deer, and there was 4 of us there, and all 4 jaws were on the ground, and we had to pick them up. And I said, dude, this isn't a 170-inch deer. I said, this is closer to like a 190-plus-inch deer.
Mm-hmm.
And he ended up coming out to 202.
Oh,
it's like Kurt Geier's buck.
Yeah.
It looks like a good buck, but you would never say 205.
Right.
He had 4 main beams, 2 drop tines. He had 53 to 55 inches of mass. When I put my hand around his base, I probably had that much room right there left before I could wrap my fingers around.
Like 2 beer cans.
Almost. Yeah, easily 2 beer cans almost.
That's crazy.
Damn.
But yeah, I was like, I'm glad I didn't give this call to someone else, because I would have been pissed if I didn't get to be part of this. I was like, it's just cool experience to be a part of something like that.
Yeah.
And I told him, I was like, well, you just ruined hunting for yourself, because you're never going to shoot a deer like this again.
Probably not.
But
that's crazy.
But that the 184-inch deer I recovered for his other buddy earlier in the season, it was the guy's first buck with a bow. And
that's cool.
I was like, you ruined deer hunting for yourself as well too. I was like, a lot of people hunt their entire lifetime and don't even get to
see 180-inch deer.
You don't even get to see one, and so I was like, you don't know what you just did.
Yeah.
But
so there's 2 other things that I mean, Micah might have some questions here. I got 2 more questions. First is, so let's say you had 25, recoveries this year. What is your success rate? And I don't mean finding the deer, but I mean leaving that place knowing exactly what the story is. Whether it's you found the deer, it's not dead, because I'm sure there's several of them that you found them. Mm-hmm. You see the shot, and you're like, dude, that's a ham shot. Like, this deer's not dead. Mm-hmm. Or you found a dead deer. Like, how many times have you failed this year? I mean, how much is it kind of one of them deals where, it just doesn't work out?
Yeah, out of the 25 calls, there's only been 2 calls I haven't found the deer or located them.
Or like knowing what's going on.
Yeah, 2 calls. I found every single deer, and again, with the capabilities on this, if I find the deer and he's in the area, I'll find him. But those 2 calls that I did, they were city bucks, and I went through probably 70, 80 plus deer on each of those calls.
Right.
And spent probably 2.5 to 3 hours, and ended up actually calling another pilot for one of them, and we just exhausted all options and any woodlots that we could think he'd go to.
Yeah.
Probably somebody under somebody's deck or something.
Well,
like
that's what I was telling him. I was like, man, there's so many deer roaming people's yards. I was like, I can't do it to people. I can't.
Yeah, I just
can't
don't know.
I can't be flying and doing that privacy deal. I was like, I wouldn't want someone doing that to me, so I got to respect that.
Yeah.
And I was like, he could easily be under someone's deck, but I was like, I'm not going to find him there. That's for sure. But it wasn't for lack of effort. It was just it just didn't work out, and
other factors played into it.
Exactly. And but besides that, I was pretty impressed with how many we were able to locate and actually know what's going on with that deer, whether he's going to live or die.
The fact of the matter is,
dead.
you're still a young pilot.
Exactly.
I mean, this is your first year doing it. And then the other thing I always, at least this is just my feeling that I get, I feel like you're either a drone guy or you're a dog guy.
Yep.
And, like, it's almost like the Chiefs and Raiders or something, Mizzou and KU or whatever. And I guess I don't look at it that way. I feel like they both have merit.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, like, Matt has the same similar numbers that you have. Like, he's successful a lot of the times. And, I mean, do you find I mean, I guess you've only been doing it for a year, so you don't maybe have all the years of experience with, different things happening. But, like, have you worked with a dog in conjunction? Do you pass calls off to dogs if you just don't know other pilots in the area? Or, like, what have you noticed with the dog community, with you specifically in the drone community?
Yeah.
And, I know Matt's done recoveries where there's been a drone involved as well.
Oh, yeah.
Or whatever, but kind of what have you noticed in your first year?
Well, what I've noticed is there's a shit ton of keyboard warriors on Facebook going back and forth.
For sure.
Got to use a drone or got to use
fly
a dog.
drone or have a dog.
yeah. And I don't even mess with that. I stick to myself, man, and focus on what I'm doing. But realistically, I think there's places for both. I think, when you're talking early season, you're talking a lot of foliage left on the trees. I think dogs are a little bit more efficient just because it's harder for the thermal to see the ground and get through all that foliage.
Right.
And so thinking for next year, I got to be fair to my customers and I actually have recommended some guys to go get dogs before coming back to the drone. I was like, if you can get a dog out there, I said that's what I recommend. But if you can't, that's when I'll come in. And kind of, again, be fair to them and let them know the possibilities of the difficulties and searching when there's that much foliage. And then when you get towards the later season when all the leaves are off, that's where I'd say, if the deer's in the area, I'll find them.
Right. That's where you shine.
And, I don't really know. I've never worked with a dog. I think it'd be cool to link up with the dog handler and maybe go out on the same trail and just say, hey, you go take a crack at it. And if you can't find them, then call me and I'll come out and try it, or vice versa.
Yeah.
And see if there's any luck that way.
Well, I think in both the people digging their heels in the sand comes from two things. They've either had a really shitty experience with a drone or a shitty experience with a dog, because there are bad dogs out there.
Oh, yeah.
And there are bad handlers and there's bad drone pilots, I'm sure, too.
Oh, yeah.
Or they've had the exact opposite, which
great experience.
I would be that way, too.
Yeah.
Like, I know Matt, if there's a dead deer, she's probably gonna, Mabel, I think's her name, right?
Mabel, yeah.
She's gonna find the deer. Sounds like you. If there's a dead deer, you're gonna find the deer.
Yeah.
So like if I called you out or Matt out and you guys found my deer, like likely I'm calling you the next time.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Why would I not?
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's when I think people dig their heels in the sand, be like, nope, drones suck, or drones are awesome, dogs suck, dogs are awesome. And I get it both ways. I mean, can't fool a dog's nose. You can't fool a drone's thermal ability,
Yeah.
The mess up comes from two different things. You have a human being operating this, and that human being can mess up.
Oh, yeah.
That's not going to mess up. That's going to show you everything every time.
Yep.
With a dog, you have a animal with a human being that could screw up.
I
mean, that's the only variables that are there is just.
I mean, even
we're still natural things that aren't perfect. We're not
perfect.
computers.
Yeah, and that's the thing is even as a drone pilot, you have to have an eye for these things. And again, why I did those first 4 or 5 calls for free, because I was like, I need to get with the drone, with the deer, and kind of see what that looks like to know exactly what I'm looking for. And there's a lot of people that just don't have that experience, and they think they know what a deer looks like, or they think that's your deer, but it really isn't. And so there's a lot of back and forth, and I personally think there's places for both. I'm not, I'm a pilot, and I'm not saying drones are superior. I think there's a time and place for everything. Yeah. I will say one of the things that I think the advantage to a drone versus a dog is if you have, let's say, an area that let's take your lease for instance. Mm-hmm. You have other people hunting it, and you don't want to go in the middle of that and disturb.
Be a little less invasive.
Disturb the area. Yeah. I think with a drone you can go in and you can locate that deer to figure out if it is dead or if it's still alive, and assess the situation before going in and walking around and kind of boogering everything out. So that's one of the big advantages I like to think a drone has over a dog. But
well, and I have noticed, like, watching Mike's stuff out in Ohio, like sometimes he puts a lot of videos out, and he'll find a deer that's not dead, and he'll be talking to the hunter and be like, well, there's a deer.
Yep.
Tomorrow morning, you do what you need to do.
Yeah.
I mean, and obviously in that situation, if that deer is not fatally wounded, a dog is likely, if it finds it, going to push it, potentially.
Yeah.
Likely, in my opinion. But if the deer is not, like, fatally wounded, that deer is going to run.
Oh, 100%.
So, like, that's nice, where you're not bothering the deer with the drone.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of, different ways to skin a cat, in my opinion. That's why I love that they're both legal in this state, and we don't live in, like, a state like Iowa, although there's giants there, that you can't do either.
Yeah.
You can't do a drone. You can't have a damn dog. I think you can. Is there? No, I don't think you can do a dog at all.
I don't think you can.
Yeah, I thought, like, I know Missouri, the dog has to be on a leash.
Yep, they have to have a leash.
The leash can be long.
Yep.
But so I'm pretty sure in Iowa there's not, like, you can't do anything. So can you imagine in Iowa
I'd be
shooting
pissed.
a 220-inch deer and not being able to have someone who could come find it for you?
Yeah. My thing is, technology is there, and this is how I see it, is a drone is another tool in the tool belt. It's another resource that hunters can come to. If a dog works, great. If dog doesn't work, drone is the next tool that you can have. If a drone works, great, and if it doesn't work, then you have the dog as a tool in there. And so,
I've heard stories both ways.
100%.
A dog has found something a drone didn't, and a drone has found something a dog didn't.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so.
And I'm right there with you. I've heard both ways, and it's just unfortunate states like Iowa and Illinois where you have absolute giants being shot each year, and they're not using the technology that is available to try and recover those deer.
Yeah,
so
that sucks. What about you, Mike? You got? I got another question.
I got some. But out of the 25 you did, how many were bow and how many were rifle?
I would say probably 75% were bow.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
I'd say, probably about 25% were gun, and a couple of youth hunters, first deer, and then just a couple bad shots with guns. So
yeah.
So, I mean, sometimes the bullet doesn't expand too when it hits.
Right, sure.
And so there's a lot of factors that go into it, to where sometimes it's just out of your control.
Well, dude, like last season when the 14-year-old, when he shot, it was, I would say, about 140-inch or so 8-pointer. I ended up confirming that he didn't hit the deer. I thought he did, but if I would have found blood on that deer, that's the deer that I would have had one of the two out, for sure. And at the time, it would have been
dog.
It would have been Matt, because I knew Matt, and you guys couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
So, but like that's one of them situations where me as a hunter, it's not so much about it is about the deer, but it's about, what's behind it. It's my son's first buck.
Absolutely.
It would have been,
Yeah.
it would have been a good one too, like all those things. But then, as a hunter, I went out and did my due diligence and were like, dude, you didn't hit him. I thought you did, but it was a clean miss, bro.
Yeah.
Which I guess is better than a injury.
Absolutely.
But, so.
Did you pay attention to it, like with your bows, if they were mechanical or fixed blade?
I'd say majority of the time it was mechanical.
That surprises me.
A lot of rages.
And
I'll pull up and I'll kind of ask them, like, what kind of broadhead are you shooting? And they'll tell me and they'll say rage, and I'm like, I'll just be sitting there.
Chinese
like,
plastic broke.
Yeah. Well, the one I was doing here this past Sunday, it didn't expand because one of the blades got frozen. And it just zipped right through it. And, I thought it was a liver shot based off of, we located this deer, and it looked liver shot, looked perfect height, it looked just a little bit back, and I was like, man, if that didn't expand, I was like, you could have literally just missed that deer. And I went out there, I think 3 times to try and locate this deer. So I went out the first time after about 24 hours after the shot, and found the deer. He was still alive. I went back the next morning, found the deer still alive, gave it 6 more hours.
Damn.
And found the deer still alive. And I was like, man, I think you just missed any sort of
important things.
Yeah. And I was like, I hate to say it, but I think this deer is going to live, and with it being end of season, it looks like he's going to be bigger next year. And
or he's going to be messed up because you injured him.
Or he's going to be messed up. Yeah, there's always a chance
go either way.
to die from infection or something like that. But he looked
in total. So that was like 2 full days, basically.
Yeah, and that was right down the road for me. And
Yeah.
so, like, when I get calls like that and they're right down the road, customers are spending the type of money, I'm going to try and help them recover their deer regardless.
I might stop back by, do stuff like that.
Yeah, and so, like, earlier this season when we got that first snow, located a deer the night before, and I was like, I don't have anything going on in the morning. I said, I'll meet you here at 6 a.m. if you want, and came back 6 a.m. and found the deer dead. He was probably 40 yards from his last bed.
Damn.
And so it's always nice to try a little bit harder, go that extra mile for the customer.
Sure. And if it's local to you, makes sense.
Yeah.
So what about some other applications? We talked about this a little bit before we started recording, but there's other things you can do with this.
Oh yeah.
And so you were officially off season as of. Well, I guess you could technically get a call tonight.
I guess technically I could.
You could, because today is the last day.
I got no calls, so
not
probably
yet.
not.
Yeah. So, what do you look forward to, after deer season, and what are some things that you think are really good applications for a thermal drone?
Yeah. So really, right now, this past probably month and these next few weeks, I've got a lot of herd analysis lined up with farms, and so. I flew 750 acres here probably 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I'll go on their farm, and I have a couple different things I'll do. I can do, total number of deer on your farm. I can do bucks versus does to try and figure out what that buck to doe ratio is. I can do all animals. So when I was doing that, he wanted all the animals, so I found turkeys roosted in the tree. I found 3 coveys of quail on there. I found some coyotes, all that stuff. And what I'll do is I'll go pin every single animal on my remote, and then I'll export that to a KVM file, and then I'll take that data, put it into an email so they can put it into Google Maps and see where all those pins are. And then give them some data, this is what the ideal buck-to-doe ratio is. This is where you're at. This is how you get to that ideal buck-to-doe ratio. And then if you for the overall deer count, if you want to increase your herd, decrease your herd, this is how many deer you got to take off your farm to try and maintain that and to have a healthy herd. I got another 250 acre farm I'm going to fly actually this weekend, and do another herd analysis on. So,
How much does that service cost?
It really just depends. I think every situation is different, and
How big the farm is.
how big the farm is, whether they want an overall deer count or they want all the animals, and then also I'm open to them coming to me and say, hey, can you do this? And so if I can do it, I'll tell them, and that might change the price depending what the timeline is going to be on that, how much longer it might take to do that service. So as much as I'd like to have a fixed price on that, it's very variable, just farm dependent. So
Okay, you got like a base though, be like it's at least going to be this much, and then we go from there. Just so people have an idea.
So I usually do it per acre. So usually on just the overall deer count, I'll do like $1.50 per acre. Gotcha. And then it'll kind of go up based off that. I mean, I'm not going to be charging $10 an acre for all the animals, but it's not going to be $1.50 because you're going in, you're checking every
more
single
time, more time, more effort. Yeah, I get it.
Yep. Right. And so that's one of the things. Another thing is pet recovery. There's a lot of people that lose dogs, and
dude, that I didn't even think of that.
Yeah. Pets are a big, they're part of someone's family. So
yeah, they are.
You lose your dog that you've had for 6-7 years, grown up with, and
excuse me.
No, you're good. And they'll call me and they'll have me out to look for their dogs. I had one I was going to do, so I can do pet recovery in Kansas, and Missouri. So so I had a person call me in Kansas, and they're like, "Hey, can you come out and look for this dog?" And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, I just got home from a long trip, though, and I said my wife will kill me if I leave right when I get home here to go do that. So I was like, "Can we wait till the morning?" They're like, "Yeah, that's not a problem at all." And then I got up at 5 a.m. to go out there, and I woke up at 5 a.m. to a text at 4 a.m. saying the dog showed up at the front porch.
Yeah, that's
a
good thing, though.
I was like, perfect. Yeah. I was like, I'm glad I didn't have to come out there. I'm glad you got your pet back. And
or it can save that heartache. Like, I have a neighbor that they lost a dog a few winters ago during a snowstorm.
Yeah.
And he was gone the whole time. Long story short, once the snow started subsiding and things kind of thawed a little bit, he was dead in the pond in between us and them. And, it would have been nice knowing.
And that's the thing is,
found him, unfortunately.
There's so many different factors. When you go on a pet recovery, it's a lot tougher because there's so many different factors. Whether
a lot more, there's a different type of emotion involved there.
Yeah, someone picked up the dog got hit.
Yeah, it could not be in the area anymore. Sure,
could not be in there. There's so many different factors. Whereas you're looking for a potential dead deer that's been wounded.
Nobody's picking that deer up.
Exactly, they're not going to go far too. And so with that, livestock recovery too, cattle, horses get out. That's someone's livelihood right there potentially, and so trying to recover those. And then
lost people.
I was going to say search and rescue. So you can't put a price on a human.
And you're in the KC area too. Like there's a lot of more people.
Yeah.
Than a rural area.
Yeah, and so
wasn't there a thing on TV recently about a drone that found a kid in the cornfield?
Yep.
Wasn't that a thermal drone?
That was really recently.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. And so I kind of told myself when I started this, I said if I ever got a call to go try and help search for a lost kid or a missing person, I said I'll be there in a heartbeat and I won't charge anything because again you can't put a price on a human.
Right.
Human life is worth more than $500 to me. So
about $350.
$350. But there was a couple calls that were about 6 hours, 7 hours away from me in southeast Missouri, and I toyed with going back, down there, but they already had I think like 3 or 4 pilots going, and I was like,
plus you were 6 hours away.
Yeah,
trying to find a person.
I was like, by the time I get there, I said, you guys are either going to find this person or you're not, and then on top of that too, I was like, by the time I get there, it's going to be like 3 in the morning.
So what do you do? Do you reach out to like the different cities around and just say, hey, I've got a thermal drone. If you guys ever have a missing person, please call me. Like, have you kind of started that process with the different, municipalities or however that works?
Yeah, some of your like KCPD and like all your bigger, I guess, more funded police
Right.
departments and stuff like that are going to have their drone people.
That's true.
They're going to have the funds to do that. I know a PD officer. He's my brother-in-law's friend, and he's up in Atchison,
Mhm.
Kansas. And I gave him a card and I said, "Hey, if you guys ever run into any issues, because they don't have a drone squad up there."
Sure.
And I was like, "If you ever have any issues, give me a call." And I said I can be there in about 45 minutes. And so, I've kind of started putting feelers out there, and just kind of get my name out.
Right.
I'm here to help if you guys need me.
Right.
And if you don't need me, I completely understand you want to do it yourself. But again, it's another tool that I have, and if I can be a part of helping someone,
Right.
being found, I'm here. So,
That's awesome.
That's cool.
but
Very cool.
All kinds of different options.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, this thing probably wasn't cheap.
no,
So,
it wasn't.
Let's just pretend it was $10,000. That's a lot of $500 increments at a time.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't know. Isn't that 20 $500 calls? So in 1 year you might pay for it, but then
Yep.
you've got the fuel that the truck and all the other stuff you have to
you got
buy.
marketing, you got fuel, you got all the extra. So I have several different types of lights
Add-ons.
on there,
Yep.
extra batteries. I have a big monitor that I put on the back of my truck that customers can watch, so they're not looking over my shoulder
Well, that's
at the
cool.
screen.
Yeah,
Because I want to give them experience so they can see what I'm seeing
that's
when I'm in
pretty
there.
nifty. Yeah,
So yeah, it's a lot more, but yeah, it's not a cheap investment, but
I bet.
you get to do some cool shit with it. That's for sure.
Yeah, and you see stuff that other people never see.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So
Yeah.
it's pretty crazy technology.
What about you,
Awesome.
man?
Plug your shit, man. Give
Yeah.
people your number.
Before we
where
hit
to
the
find.
the stop button, talk about where people can get a hold of you, where they can find you on social,
Yeah.
website, all that stuff.
Yeah. So you can find me on Burd Eye Drone Services on Facebook.
And that is BURD.
-EYE.
Yep.
Drone Services, either on Facebook, Instagram, and then I don't know. Should I give out my number on here?
If you
Why
want,
can't
that's
you?
up to you.
Yeah.
You can reach me at 913-991-6201. But yeah, if there's really anything that you think you could use for drone services, just give me a call, talk to me. I'll tell you if I can do it, and I'll be honest with you if I can't. And maybe I do know someone that can do what you're looking for. So, but yeah, that's pretty much it. And again, I appreciate all my customers that put their trust in me this year, and I look forward to hopefully being able to help some other people.
Well,
down
I'll tell
the
you
road.
what. I mean, we're good to go. Like we got either Matt or Nathan.
Yeah, I think
And
we're covered.
I don't ever want to call you.
That's what I tell them. I said I hope you never have to call me. I
But
hope you have to.
It's nice knowing someone in the area that if we did have something happen, we've been lucky the last few years. Honestly, as a group, we haven't. I mean, the last deer I've had to worry about was the one over there, and we found him the next morning pretty easily.
Nice.
But
That one I shouldered, but we knew he lived.
yeah,
so.
but
Yeah.
in that situation, it might have been nice, to find. But we did know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
In fact,
immediately.
we literally saw him.
Yeah.
But now, looking back, we did see that
Yeah,
deer.
yeah.
But it's just it's nice to have that tool in your tool belt. And you talk about the people, the customers you've met that become friends.
Yeah.
It's the same situation with the podcast. We met Matt Davis through this. We've met you through this, and we save information.
Oh,
we
yeah.
know who people are, and we remember those. So, dude, Nathan, thanks for coming on and talking about drone deer recovery or drone services.
There
Let's
you
just
go.
talk about, because it's
Yeah.
not just deer recovery. And we appreciate you coming on, man.
No, I appreciate you guys. Yeah, if you guys ever need me, hopefully you don't, but
Right.
give me a shout. And yeah, thanks for having me on Missouri Woods and Water podcast. It's been an honor being on here. So
No problem, man. Thanks
Thank
for coming out.
absolutely.
All right, we'll
All
see
right.
you, bud.
See ya.